Hello everyone. Today, I'm addressing a critical vulnerability in our sector, financial instability. I'll be analyzing the 2024 crisis at Summerhall, a pillar of the Edinburgh Fringe. Despite its massive popularity, the venue faced a winding-up petition this year that threatened to close its doors forever. This case is crucial for our module because it demonstrates exactly what happens when strategic planning and financial governance fail, proving that cultural impact does not guarantee commercial survival. So, what exactly was the issue? In October 2024, the crisis hit a breaking point when 108 different shows were informed they would not receive their ticket revenue. The financial damage was severe, with individual artists owed up to £15,000. To understand the gravity of this, remember that fringe artists already shoulder the financial risk. Many had paid venue hire fees of nearly £10,000 up front, just to secure a stage. The trigger was a £500,000 unpaid tax bill. HMRC filed a winding-up petition against Summerhall, which legally froze the venue's bank accounts. Consequently, the ticket money, which rightfully belonged to the artists, became trapped inside those frozen accounts, leaving performers stranded without their earnings. Crucially, my research reveals that this was not an unpredictable disaster, but a systemic repeat failure. Almost the exact same scenario occurred in 2013, involving a similar tax dispute. The fact that this happened twice exposes a decade-long failure to implement proper risk management strategies. This failure was compounded by a tangled corporate structure. On paper, there were two entities, Summerhall Management, which held the tax debt, and Summerhall Arts, the charity running the festival. However, the lines were blurred. The same individual served as CEO for both. Because of this conflict of interest and lack of operational separation, when the management side failed, it inevitably dragged the charity, and the artists' money, down with it. Addressing the brief on who was involved, we see a disturbing power imbalance. At the bottom of the hierarchy were the artists. They held the least power but suffered the highest impact, facing severe financial loss and mental distress. At the top was HMRC. They held absolute authority to freeze the assets. Beside them was Summerhall Management, the corporate entity responsible for the failure. Caught in the crossfire were three other key groups: the Fringe Society, who were legally blocked from redirecting payments to save the artists; the venue staff, who also went without wages; and the Equity Union, who stepped in to advocate but ultimately could not override the legal freeze. This analysis clearly shows that the financial risk was pushed onto those least able to bear it. To accurately define the issue type for this brief, we must look beyond the surface and identify this as a complex convergence of PESTEL factors. While the situation manifests as a financial crisis, the chain of events was actually ignited by legal factors. The catalyst was HMRC utilizing a specific statutory tool to demand immediate payment, but the true disaster lay in the legal trap of the existing contract law, which effectively handcuffed the Fringe Society and prevented them from legally intervening to safeguard the artists' money. However, a legal trigger only causes this magnitude of damage because the dominant factor is economic. We have to be clear that the entire Fringe model is defined by financial fragility. It is an ecosystem where venues and artists operate with almost zero public funding while simultaneously facing an unsustainable cost of living crisis regarding travel and accommodation. This economic vulnerability is directly linked to the political backdrop, characterized by a long-term strategy of cuts to arts funding that has left the sector without a safety net. The culmination of these factors is a massive social impact that goes beyond a balance sheet. It has exposed the precarious, unstable nature of life for modern artists, causing genuine psychological distress and a profound, perhaps permanent, loss of trust between the talent and the organizers. Therefore, this is not just an insolvency issue. It is a systemic failure where legal rigidity, economic fragility, and political neglect have combined to create a social crisis. Finally, the brief requires strategic models to examine the problem, rather than solve it, so I have selected three frameworks. First, we apply nonprofit governance models, which links to our leadership topic. This forces us to ask why management failed to mitigate a critical risk they had identified 10 years ago. Second, I will use resource dependence theory to address funding. This highlights the model's structural fragility, caused by a dangerous over-reliance on volatile revenue from ticket sales and artist fees. Third, we must use stakeholder theory and business ethics to expose the core ethical failure. A system designed to force the artists, the stakeholders with the least power, to shoulder the entire financial risk. My analysis is based on these news and academic sources, which are on the slide. Thank you for listening.